I stared at the calendar on my kitchen wall, tracing my finger over the date circled in red. 2 months until the big 3-0, 30 years old. A milestone that seemed to demand some kind of recognition beyond just another birthday cake and a few drinks with friends. My name is Harper Wilson, and I haven't really spoken to my family in over 10 years. Not in any meaningful way, at least. The occasional holiday text message or obligatory happy birthday call doesn't count as real communication in my book. I live in Seattle now, about as far as I could get from my hometown of Charleston, South Carolina, without leaving the continental United States. The distance wasn't accidental. When I left home at 18, I wanted physical space to match the emotional gap that had formed between me and my parents. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. I studied hard, joined every extracurricular activity that would look good on a college application, and stayed out of trouble. My sister Amber, 2 years younger than me, was different. She was the pretty one, the fun one, the one who could charm our parents into giving her whatever she wanted. I had a plan. I knew that my parents had been saving money in educational funds for both me and Amber. I also knew that college was expensive, even with the full scholarship I was determined to earn. So I worked my ass off in high school, and it paid off when I got that letter from Westlake University offering me a full academic scholarship. The day I got that letter was one of the happiest of my life. I ran home, bursting through the front door, waving the envelope. Mom, Dad, I got it. Full scholarship to Westlake. My parents were in the kitchen. Mom was cooking dinner while Dad sat at the table with a beer, helping Amber with what looked like math homework. That's great, honey, Mom said without looking up from the stove. Dad gave me a thumbs up, good job, Harper. Amber just rolled her eyes and went back to her homework. It wasn't exactly the reaction I had hoped for, but I was used to it. That evening, I brought up the subject of the educational fund. So, I was thinking, I said, pushing the peas around on my plate. Since I got the full scholarship, maybe I could use some of my educational fund money to rent an apartment near campus? The dorms are really expensive, and I'd rather not have to work too many hours while taking a full course load. The silence that followed made my stomach clench. My parents exchanged looks, and then my dad cleared his throat. Harper, there's not really money in your educational fund anymore, he said. I blinked. What do you mean? You've been saving since I was born. We've been using that money for years, my mom jumped in. Raising you, feeding you, buying your clothes. That's what the money was for. Amber snickered beside me. They bought me a car with some of it last month for my 16th birthday. Remember that blue Honda I showed you? That's when it hit me, the money was gone, and not because it had been spent on my upbringing as my parents claimed. They had spent it on themselves and Amber. If I hadn't gotten that scholarship, I wouldn't be going to college at all. I went up to my room that night and cried for hours. Then I made a decision. I would work at the local cafe as much as possible over the summer, save every penny, and then leave without looking back. The next few months were a blur of double shifts, skipped social events, and silent dinners with my family. Amber tried to goad me several times, making comments about how much our parents loved her and how they were already planning to pay for her to go to some fancy private college in a few years. I didn't take the bait. I just kept my head down and worked. The only person I said a proper goodbye to was my grandmother, my dad's mom. Grandma Ruth had always seen through the family dynamics, though she rarely intervened. The day before I left for college, I visited her at her small house on the outskirts of town. They've never been fair to you, Harper, she said, patting my hand as we sat on her porch swing. But you're going to make something of yourself, and that'll be the best revenge. Then she went inside and came back with an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. I've been saving it for you. Consider it an investment in your future. The next day, I packed everything I could fit into 2 suitcases, left a brief note on the kitchen counter, and boarded a train heading west without saying goodbye to my parents or Amber. It was August 17th, and I was 18 years old, setting off to start a new life with a broken heart and a determination to prove everyone wrong. College was tough, but nothing compared to what I'd already been through. I found a tiny apartment about 6 blocks from campus, a shoebox with peeling paint and temperamental plumbing, but it was mine. Grandma Ruth's money covered the security deposit and first 2 months' rent, giving me enough time to find a decent job. I landed a position at a campus coffee shop, working early mornings before classes and weekend shifts. Between work and studying, I barely had time to think about my family, which was exactly how I wanted it. Sometimes, Grandma Ruth would call with updates from home. "Your sister's graduating next month," she told me during my sophomore year. "Your parents are throwing her this huge party. Hired a band and everything." "Good for her," I said, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. "They're paying for her to go to Belmore College," Grandma continued. "It's not cheap." I laughed without humor. "Of course they are. How are your classes, Harper?" I was excelling, my finance professors praised my work, and the dean had personally congratulated me on making the honor roll 3 semesters in a row. But I never told my parents any of this. As far as they knew, I was just getting by. After graduation, I sent out dozens of resumes. I got 3 job offers, but the one that caught my attention was from Pacific Northwest Financial in Seattle, about as far from Charleston as I could get. The starting salary wasn't amazing, but the company showed promise, and the position had growth potential. I packed up my life once again and headed west, this time with a degree and growing confidence. Pacific Northwest was small when I started, but they had smart leadership and ambitious plans. I worked my ass off, stayed late, came in early, and volunteered for the projects no one else wanted. Within 2 years, I had my first promotion. The only time I went back to Charleston was for Grandma Ruth's 75th birthday. I couldn't miss it, even though I knew my parents and Amber would be there. I flew in for the weekend, got a hotel room, and showed up at the party in a simple but elegant dress I'd bought on sale. Amber spotted me first. She'd gained weight since high school but was still conventionally pretty with her blonde hair and blue eyes, so similar to mine, yet we couldn't be more different. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "The prodigal daughter returns." I gave her a tight smile. "Hello, Amber, you look well." "I just graduated summa cum laude from Belmore," she announced, twirling the champagne in her glass. "Got a job lined up at Wilson and Barnes." "It's a pretty big deal." I nodded politely. "Congratulations." My parents approached next. Mom looked older, with more gray in her brown hair than I remembered. Dad had put on weight, his once athletic frame now soft around the middle. "Harper," Mom said stiffly, not moving to hug me, "you made it." "Wouldn't miss Grandma's birthday," I replied. Dad cleared his throat. "So, what are you up to these days?" I could have told them about my recent promotion to senior financial analyst. About how the CEO knew me by name and had personally congratulated me on saving a major client relationship. About the bonus that had allowed me to upgrade to a nicer apartment with a view of Puget Sound. Instead, I said, "I'm just a manager, nothing special." Amber snorted, "Figured as much." Grandma Ruth, who was passing by and overheard, shot me a knowing look. She was the only one who knew the truth, that at 24, I was already making more money than most people twice my age. That I wasn't just anything. The party dragged on, and I left early the next morning, relieved to be returning to Seattle, to my real life. The years passed quickly after that. I continued to climb the corporate ladder at Pacific Northwest Financial. By 27, I was the youngest department head in company history. By 29, my current age, I'd been promoted to financial director, overseeing a team of 30 people. The company had grown exponentially, and my salary grew with it. I bought a beautiful condo in one of Seattle's most desirable neighborhoods, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline and Elliott Bay beyond. I took luxury vacations to places I'd only dreamed about as a kid: Paris, Tokyo, Buenos Aires. I bought clothes because I liked them, not because they were on clearance. In many ways, I had everything I'd ever wanted, except family. As my 30th birthday approached, I found myself thinking more about Charleston, about the broken relationships I'd left behind. Was I holding on to old hurts for too long? Had enough time passed to heal those wounds? One evening, after a particularly successful day at work where we'd closed a deal worth millions, I poured myself a glass of expensive Cabernet and called my grandmother. "I'm thinking of inviting everyone for my birthday," I said after we'd caught up, "here to Seattle." There was a pause on the line. "Everyone?" "Mom, Dad, Amber, you, of course, the whole family." "Well, I'd love to come," she said. "It's been too long since I've seen you." "I'll buy your ticket," I offered immediately. "First class, you'll love it." After hanging up with Grandma, I took a deep breath and dialed my parents' number. Mom answered on the fourth ring. "Hello?" Her voice sounded exactly the same. "Hi, Mom, it's Harper." Silence stretched for a moment. "Harper, this is a surprise." "Yeah, I know," I swirled the wine in my glass. "I'm calling because my 30th birthday is coming up in a couple of months, and I'd like to invite you, Dad, and Amber to celebrate with me here in Seattle." Another long pause. "Seattle is very far, Harper, flights are expensive." Of course that would be her first concern. "Not I've missed you or I'd love to see you, but it costs too much." "I understand," I said, keeping my voice even. "That's why I'm offering to pay for your flights and hotel accommodations." "Well," Mom said, her voice suddenly more cheerful. "If you're offering to pay, I suppose we could make it work." I'd known money would be the magic word, it always was with them. "Great," I replied, trying to sound enthusiastic. "I'll look into flights for you, Dad, and Amber." "Actually," Mom cut in quickly, "if you're paying anyway, I was thinking we could make it a real family reunion. Your Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Bob haven't seen you in years. And your cousins are all grown now. Wouldn't it be nice to have everyone there?" I paused, glass halfway to my lips. This wasn't what I had expected. "How many people are we talking about?" "Oh, not many," Mom said airily. "Just your dad and me, Amber, Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Bob, their kids Taylor and Jason, and Aunt Diane and Uncle Mike with their daughter Sophie. That's only 10 people. 10 plane tickets, 10 hotel rooms. The cost would be significant, but I could afford it." "Fine," I agreed, "I can arrange that." "Actually," Mom said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, "it would be easier if you just sent us the money. We can coordinate everything from here. Everyone's schedules are so complicated, you know." I should have stood my ground, but a part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, my parents had changed. That they actually wanted to see me and celebrate my birthday. "All right," I conceded, "how much do you need?" Mom didn't hesitate. $15,000 should cover it." I nearly choked. $15,000? For 10 plane tickets? And hotel accommodations, Mom reminded me. Plus, some of us might need to rent cars. And you know how expensive last-minute bookings can be. It was an outrageous amount, but I had it. And if it meant finally reconnecting with my family, maybe it would be worth it. "I'll transfer the money tomorrow," I said, finishing my wine in one gulp. "Wonderful. We're so excited to see you, Harper, it's been too long." After hanging up, I stared at my phone for a long time. Had I just made a huge mistake? The next day, I transferred $15,000 to my mother's account. Then I threw myself into birthday preparations. I booked a private room at Canlis, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants, with a spectacular view of Lake Union. I ordered a custom cake from the city's best bakery and arranged for floral centerpieces for each table. Grandma Ruth arrived a week before my birthday. I met her at the airport, and we hugged for a long time. "Look at you," she said, holding me at arm's length, "you're glowing." I smiled. "I'm happy, Grandma, really happy." "Your place is gorgeous," she gasped when we arrived at my condo. "The view alone must cost a fortune." I gave her the tour, ending with the guest bedroom where she'd be staying. "It's not much, but I hope you'll be comfortable." She laughed. "Not much? Harper, this room is bigger than my living room at home." We spent the week sightseeing and catching up. I showed her Pike Place Market, took her on a ferry to Bainbridge Island, and brought her to my office, where my colleagues treated her like visiting royalty. 3 days before my birthday, I realized I hadn't heard anything about my family's arrival plans. I tried calling Mom, but there was no answer. I called Dad next, then Amber. Nothing. Growing worried, I sent a group text, "Hey, need to know your arrival details for Saturday, restaurant is booked for 7 p.m. No response. I decided to call Aunt Cheryl directly. Maybe she had details. "Aunt Cheryl, it's Harper, I'm calling about your flight to Seattle. I wanted to make sure everything was arranged for Saturday." There was a long pause. "Flight to Seattle? What are you talking about?" My stomach dropped. "For my birthday celebration. Mom said you and Uncle Bob and the kids were coming." "Honey, this is the first I'm hearing about it. We don't have any plans to fly to Seattle." The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. "Mom told me, she said everyone was coming. That's why I sent her $15,000 for the tickets and hotels." "Oh, Harper," she sighed, "I'm so sorry. But none of us were invited or told about any birthday celebration." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Grandma Ruth found me there, staring at nothing. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting beside me. I told her everything, about the money, about my parents' lies. "Those bastards," she spat, angrier than I'd ever seen her. "Using your olive branch to rob you blind. I sent my parents a text, I know you lied. There never was a plan for the family to come, where's my money?" Hours passed with no response. Finally, my phone pinged with a message from Amber, "Having an amazing time in Hawaii. Thanks for the all-expenses-paid vacation, sis. Not that we'd want to celebrate with a nobody manager anyway." Attached was a photo of her, Mom, and Dad on a beach, cocktails in hand, looking tanned and happy. "They're in Hawaii?" Grandma Ruth gasped, looking at my phone. "With your money?" I should have been devastated. Instead, a cold fury washed over me. They thought I was still that same vulnerable 18-year-old they could push around. They had no idea who I'd become. "They think I'm a nobody," I said quietly, "a manager barely making ends meet." I opened my banking app, navigated to my savings account, and took a screenshot of the balance, $2,457,892.03. Years of bonuses, smart investments, and stock options had paid off handsomely. Without a word, I sent the screenshot to all three of them with a simple caption, "Well, who's the loser here?" Almost immediately, my phone started ringing. Mom, then Dad, then Amber. I declined them all. "What now?" Grandma Ruth asked, a gleam of pride in her eyes. "Now," I said, silencing my phone as messages started pouring in, "we prepare for my birthday party. And I make sure they never set foot in that restaurant." The messages kept coming over the next couple of days. First pleading, then demanding, then back to pleading. The latest text from Mom read, "We're cutting our Hawaii trip short. We'll be at your restaurant on Saturday. Can't wait to celebrate with our successful daughter." I showed Grandma Ruth, who just shook her head, "Vultures. They smell money and come circling." "They're not getting any closer," I replied, picking up my phone to call Canlis. "This is Harper Wilson," I said when the manager answered. "I have a reservation for Saturday night, private room. I need to add something. I have 3 people who might try to attend who are not on the guest list, Robert and Jennifer Wilson, and Amber Wilson. They should not be allowed in under any circumstances." There was a brief pause. "I understand. We'll ensure they don't access the private area." "Thank you," I said, relieved, "and please have security available, just in case." The day of my 30th birthday arrived sunny and clear, unusual for Seattle in March. I spent the morning with Grandma Ruth, opening her gift, a beautiful cashmere scarf, and reminiscing about happier times from my childhood. In the afternoon, I was surprised by a call from Aunt Cheryl. "Happy birthday, Harper. Listen, Bob and I were thinking, would it be okay if we flew up for your party tonight? We'd pay our own way, of course. We'd love to celebrate with you, if that's okay." I'd love that, I said sincerely. The party starts at 7 at Canlis. We'll be there, she promised. That evening, Grandma Ruth and I got ready together. I wore a sleek black dress that had cost more than a month's rent at my first apartment, with the emerald earrings I'd bought myself after my last promotion. Grandma wore a lovely blue pantsuit and pearl necklace. You look beautiful, she told me as our Uber pulled up to the restaurant. 30 looks good on you. Canlis was lit up against the darkening sky, its large windows showcasing the glittering lake beyond. The maitre d' greeted us by name and escorted us to the private room I'd reserved, where several of my friends were already waiting. The room was stunning, with panoramic views, elegant table settings, and the floral arrangements I'd ordered. A small band played soft jazz in the corner, and waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. My closest Seattle friends were there, Trisha from work, who'd mentored me when I first started, Kaido, my gym buddy who'd become a dear friend, Elena and her husband Ben, my neighbors who'd helped me settle into my condo. Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Bob arrived minutes after us, giving me warm hugs and marveling at the elegant venue. The evening was in full swing, wine flowing and conversation buzzing, when the restaurant manager approached me discreetly. Ms. Wilson, the individuals you mentioned are at the front desk, insisting they're expected at your party. I nodded. I'll handle it. Would you like security to accompany you? No need, I said, but have them nearby. I walked through the main restaurant to the reception area, head held high. And there they were, Mom, Dad, and Amber, dressed in what I assumed were their vacation best, looking sunburned and out of place among Canlis's sophisticated clientele. Mom spotted me first. Harper, there you are. The receptionist won't let us in. That's correct, I said coolly, you're not on the guest list. Don't be ridiculous, Dad scoffed, we're your parents. We came all this way, Amber added, her voice whiny. We spent like $2,000 on last-minute flights from Hawaii. Oh, only $2,000, I raised an eyebrow. What happened to the other $13,000 I sent you? They exchanged uncomfortable glances. Look, Mom said, her voice softening to that manipulative tone I remembered from childhood, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have taken your money like that. But we're here now. We want to celebrate with you. No, I said simply, you don't want to celebrate with me. You want to see what else you can get from me now that you know I have money. You never cared about my success before. You never once asked how I was really doing. You spent my college fund on Amber, abandoned me to fend for myself, and then stole from me when I tried to reconnect. Why would I want you at my birthday party? It was just a joke, Amber muttered, we were always going to come. After spending my money on your vacation? How generous. I shook my head, I'm done with all of you. I gave you a chance to be part of my life again, and you chose to lie and steal instead. We're your family, Mom said, her voice rising, you can't just cut us out. Watch me, I turned to the security guards who had positioned themselves nearby. Please escort them out, they're not welcome here. I turned and walked back to my party, their protests fading behind me. By the time I returned to the private room, I was smiling again. Everything okay? Grandma Ruth asked as I rejoined the table. Perfect, I replied, raising my champagne glass. Now, where were we? Oh right, celebrating. The rest of the evening was wonderful. We ate delicious food, drank excellent wine, and danced to the jazz band. When the cake came out, 3 tiers of chocolate ganache with Happy 30th, Harper written in gold, everyone sang, and I felt truly celebrated for perhaps the first time in my life. As the party wound down, I used my phone to block my parents' and Amber's numbers. It was time for a clean break. 2 weeks later, Grandma Ruth called with news from Charleston. Cheryl told everyone what happened, she said, amusement in her voice. About how your parents pretended the whole family was invited just to take your money for their Hawaii trip. The family group chat exploded. No one's speaking to your parents now. Even your mother's sister called her a disgrace. Good, I said, feeling a strange sense of closure, they deserve it. They've been calling me, you know. Trying to get me to intervene. I told them I was considering removing them from my will after what they did to you. I laughed. You didn't have to do that, Grandma. Oh, but I enjoyed it, she chuckled, very much. After we hung up, I walked to my living room windows and looked out at the Seattle skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, reflecting off the glass buildings downtown. I thought about the long road that had brought me here. About the scared, hurt 18-year-old who'd left home with nothing but determination and a check from her grandmother. About the college student who'd worked double shifts while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. About the young professional who'd climbed the corporate ladder through sheer talent and grit. I'd done all of that without my parents' support or love. I'd built this life for myself, brick by brick. And now, at 30, I was finally free of the need for their approval. Free of the hurt they'd caused. Free to live my life on my own terms, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me.